Well, about 6 years ago now, I got to take with my wife a trip of a lifetime. Nan and I got to go with my brother and his wife and my mom and my dad, and we got to go and visit Israel. It was something we'd wanted to do. My folks are putting a trip together. Lots of our close friends got to go with us, and we got to go experience the Holy Land. It was an amazing time, going to see all the sights, walking in places where we knew Jesus had walked. And we were just in awe of the whole thing. And of course, we're trying to do the thing that everybody does while they're there. We're trying to take every picture and get souvenirs and things like that would remind us of the trip, and take all these things home and take gifts home to our friends and family back home. We also got to take something home with us that we had not expected to get while we were in Israel. We got to take home with us, my wife in particular, got to take home with her what would turn out to be breast cancer. And we weren't looking for that. We weren't expecting that at all. We were staying at this little kibbutz down by the Sea of Galilee. And my wife says to me, I think I found a lump that was not there not too long ago. And it's getting big fast, and I'm not really sure what to do. We had about another week or so in Israel, and as we're wandering through Israel, you can imagine what's going through our minds. We're processing this, and Nan and I would talk as we were walking along, and she was telling me, she says, I think I feel God telling me that I'm not going to die from this. I'm like, that's good. Let's hold on to that, honey. Let's go with that, right? Because what I was hearing in my heart was this. I was hearing God say to me, Mitch, I'm not going to save you from this, but I'm going to see you through it. And I got to be honest with you, that's not what I wanted to hear. I did not want to think about what God was going to have to see us through, right? I just wanted it to be over. I wanted it to be instantly over. I'm thinking, hey, we're in the Holy Land. Here we are in the footsteps of Jesus. You chuck Nan in the Jordan River and everything will be fine, right? Isn't that how this works around here? That's what I wanted. I wanted it to be over. But what I found out really quickly was that God wanted it to matter in our life. That through the journey, and believe me, we had to walk the journey, right? We went through the chemo, we went through the surgery, we went through all of the radiation. We have gone through in the last few years all of the aftermath and the things that nobody tells you about in the cancer brochure, right? All the things that come along with that. We went through the journey, but all the way, along the way, up until this very day, I can tell you that we have seen the small mercies of God show up in that journey. This journey has grown our faith, right? And now we have had an experience that we can look back on and say what many of you say as you look back on experiences like that in your life. We can say, I would never have chosen it, but I would never trade it either. I would never have voted for this, but I would never trade it either, because we got something out of it that you could only get from going through it, right? We found that in the pain, somehow there was great gain that we got in the midst of it. Something so valuable that we would be willing to trade our comfort for it. But I gotta tell you, when you're in the midst of a time like that, when you're in the middle of that, that's hard to hear. When you're struggling, when difficulty has come and landed on your doorstep, the last thing you want somebody to do is walk up to you and go, hey, you're going to get a great lesson out of this. It'll be awesome. That's the last thing you want to hear, because when we're in it, right, we only feel the pain. It's really difficult in those moments to see the gain that could come out of the difficulty that we're facing. Well, it's a good thing there's nothing difficult going on right now. Right? Listen, I've been saying to people probably like you have too. We are living in a season where there is difficulty in every direction. Whether it's a global pandemic or a looming financial crisis, whether it's racial injustices happening or a presidential election. Listen, there is difficulty in every direction. And as followers of Jesus, we kind of know that that's what's going to happen in life, right? The one ING that Jesus promised us that we will be a part of if we're his followers is this one: suffering. This one that we wouldn't vote for. We want to talk about this less than we want to talk about giving, right? But this is a part of the journey that we go on when we follow Jesus. And when it happens, the natural thing for us is to want it to be over. The natural thing for all of us is to look at what's happening and say, I want this done now. But here's the truth. If we aren't intentional while we're in it, we can miss what God wants us to get out of it. If while we're in these difficult moments, if we don't take some time and call a timeout and pause for just a minute and make some intentional decisions, we will miss the very things that God wants us to take away from it. We will end up having all pain without the gain. And so tonight we're going to look at a passage from the book of James. Now, James is the brother of Jesus, who wrote this document to the people who were following Jesus in the city of Jerusalem. And it helps us because he, of all people, was familiar with people in suffering for their faith. He was a leader of the church at Jerusalem. It was the epicenter of persecution and hardship for people who called themselves followers of Jesus. And if you've been a Christian for very long, you probably know this verse. You might even have these verses memorized. And this is what James says to us. He says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy." And what he's saying is this, is that when trouble comes our way, we got a decision to make, don't we? How are we going to see this? How are we going to approach these difficulties? How are we going to consider these things that are happening to us? What's going to be our attitude? What's going to be our posture as these difficulties have come our way? Because what we know is it's an opportunity for all kinds of emotions to come. When we face difficulties, it's an opportunity for sadness to set in, for anger to come, for fear to come, right? But we have to decide the posture that we're going to take as those difficulties have come our way. It's a little like signing up for the gym, right? Now, I don't mean to make light of our difficulties, but it's a little bit like signing up for the gym, right? Because when we sign up for the gym, what we know is that inside that building, there are many opportunities for troubles of many kinds, don't we? I mean, every one of those machines, every one of those classes is another opportunity for trouble of a different kind. And it's also the opportunity for emotions of many kinds, right? And what we do when we sign up for the gym is we kind of decide our posture. What we do is we get ourselves all fired up. And day one, our posture is, we are going to make this work. I'm going to go there and it's going to work this time. I'm going to get in shape this time. I'm going to lose some weight this time. We're going to make this good. And then day two, your posture is, I kind of want to die right now. This hurts so bad. What happened in there, right? And that's kind of our experience with difficulty. James is saying we have a decision to make about the posture that we're going to take, about these difficulties that come our way. Here's the difference between life and the gym. You can decide whether or not you want to go to the gym, but life will hunt you down. See, I thought some really dramatic music ought to be playing right there. You know, the dun, dun, dun when I said that, all right? But we know that's true. I mean, there's difficulties we can decide on ourselves, like going to the gym or making really horrible decisions, but sometimes life just happens to us. And what James is saying, as crazy as it sounds, is that you can decide. In fact, the word consider that he uses there is a little stronger than just consider. What he's literally saying is you can determine by an act of your choice the posture that you will take when difficulty comes. He says whatever other emotions will come, you can consider difficulty an opportunity for joy. Now understand, he's not talking about fun. He's not talking about enjoyment. He's using that word joy, meaning a deep sense of well-being in our life that is rooted in confidence. And what he's saying is when difficulty of any kind shows up on your porch, you have a choice to make, and you can set yourself in the posture of joy, and here's why. He goes on to say this. He says, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. He's saying, you know this. It's kind of intuitive amongst us. We kind of get this, that when something is tested, it gets more tested and proven and seasoned, right? It's like going to the gym. When you go to the gym and put your body to the test, your body gets more tested and seasoned. Your muscles get stronger, more enduring, more persevering, more resilient. And when your faith is put to the test, the same thing happens. It gets stronger and more enduring and more persevering and more resilient. When your faith is put to the test, the enduring nature of your faith has a chance to grow. You will gain a faith that you won't just bail on every time things don't go your way. He says, look, difficulty that we face in life is the gym of our soul, where our confidence in God gets the opportunity to grow strong and enduring and resilient. We get to see firsthand in our difficulties whether we can count on God or not, right? You know those people. Those people that are your friends, maybe they're your family members, maybe they're even you. They have been through it. They may be still going through it, and they're enduring it. They're facing it with an enduring confidence in God that's resilient and strong and tested and proven. They're going through it. They've been through it, and they still believe. They still demonstrate this confident trust in God. Sure, they're afraid at times. Sure, at times they get sad. Sure, things are still difficult for them, but they're not freaking out. And what we know is when the bombs start dropping in our life, those are the people we go looking for, aren't they? They're the ones we want to get next to. I can't tell you through our cancer journey how many times some of you came up to Nan, came up to I and said, let me just tell you, man, it's gonna look like the lights are going off. It's gonna feel like the world is caving in. It's gonna feel like you don't want to take another step, but I'm just telling you, God will be faithful and you can keep going. And how much that encouraged us. We know that a tested faith is an enduring kind of faith. And so James goes on and tells us this. He says, so let it grow. When you're in these circumstances, let your faith grow in that way. For when your endurance is fully developed, you'll be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Now, there's a little play on words that's going on here that we don't pick up in the English language. But what he's saying here is this. When your faith grows this enduring, sustaining, resilient quality to it, when it's fully developed in that way, then you'll be fully developed too. In fact, he uses the same word for fully developed and for perfect. He says, when your faith is developed to perfection, you'll be perfect too. And he doesn't mean perfect in your behavior, but you'll have a perfect confidence in God. When you're able to endure whatever comes your way with a confidence in God, when it is fully developed, you'll be developed too. You'll be complete too. You'll be mature too. That's what spiritual maturity is about. And then he says this, you won't need anything else. He says the confidence in God that you gained in your pain will be all you need to handle whatever comes in your life. And look, let's be honest, right? There's going to be times in life when that's all you have, right? For some of us, we walk through difficult journeys in life, and there was nothing else to hang on to. It'll be all you have. And when you find yourself doing that, you'll be doing what the followers of Jesus do. The other ing that Jesus followers do. You'll be trusting, right? Look, James says that we can have this posture of joy because when testing times come, they grow our joy. They grow in us a tested confidence in God. Now, here's what I know. That's probably exactly what you would expect a pastor to tell you about going through difficult times, isn't it? Hey, when difficult times come, hey, just be joyful because you can trust God through it all. Isn't that exactly what you expect a guy like me to tell you? Isn't that what you've tried to tell yourself? Isn't that what you've tried to tell other people too? Listen, let me show you, let me talk to you about why this is so critical to get this, why this is so important. Listen, knowing where we get our confidence is foundational. It is fundamental to our sense of well-being in our life. Understanding where our confidence comes from is in the same category of knowing what our purpose in life is, or why we have value as a human being, or why we can be forgiven, right? We need a sense of confidence to get through this life as a human being. We need confidence that things are going to be okay. We need confidence that we're going to be okay. And here's the thing, our level of confidence is connected to our level of joy. We said earlier, joy isn't just about being happy. It's this deep sense of well-being and confidence that things are going to be okay. And that's why James is connecting our faith to our joy. He's saying, look, difficulty can be an opportunity for joy in your life if you know where your confidence comes from. Listen, later on in that same chapter, he links our confidence to wisdom too. You ought to continue reading in James chapter 1. He says your level of wisdom will also be connected to your level of confidence in God. Here's how it works. Look, when we can have joy when we can look around at the world around us and say, look, this is good. When we can look at our circumstances and say, this is good, and more good is coming. Anytime you can look at your circumstances or your life and say, hey, this is good, and more good is coming, you can have joy. And all God's people said, no duh. I mean, that's the easiest thing to understand, right? I mean, this is the time when we have joy. Everything is good, and goods, we can anticipate more good. It's easy to have joy. But listen, joy is resilient enough that this is true also. That you can say, this isn't good. These circumstances aren't good, but more good is coming. And when you can look around at your circumstances and say, this isn't good, but you know what? There's more good coming. You can have joy. Now listen, despair works like this too. Despair comes when we say, these circumstances, this is bad, and more bad is coming. And when we say that, despair sets in. But listen, this isn't the depths of despair. The depths of despair come when you say this, hey, this is good, life's okay, but only bad is coming. That when the good of the day is overcome by the bad that you anticipate, this is the depths of despair. And many people get here, and when they do, life tends to be over. Do you see how our joy is linked to our confidence in what is coming? Here's the problem. We don't know what's coming, do we? You don't know what's coming next week. You don't know what's coming after the election. You don't know what's coming this afternoon. We don't know listen, if 2020 has taught us anything, it's taught us that we have no idea what's coming, right? And when we have no confidence about what's coming in our life, joy leaves the building. When we have no confidence about what's coming, joy leaves the building and it gets replaced by despair. There was a study done at Yale University several years ago, and they were identifying 6 basic human emotions. They called them the basic emotions, and this is what they were. They were joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. And I know you're thinking, Mitch, you probably should learn to count because that's only 5, right? Well, the 6th one was the emotion of surprise, and what they said about surprise is that surprise is kind of a neutral emotion. It can really go either way. So if you're an extrovert, surprise is awesome. If you're an introvert like me, surprise is the worst, isn't it? But these were the basic emotions, these 5 plus surprise. You might have seen a movie about this, right? The good people at Pixar put a little movie together called Inside Out that talked about these emotions, and you remember the characters that went with these emotions. Here's what we know. When we lose our confidence in what's coming, joy disappears. And when joy goes away, look at what's left. Does this look familiar to anybody? Because this right here is the 5 o'clock news every day. This is what your social media feed looks like a lot of times when people start commenting on events in our world, right? When joy walks out of the building of our life because we aren't confident about what's coming, then we're left with sadness and anger and fear and disgust. And then we take these and we make decisions, and we have conversations, and we do our relationships, and we post on our social media, and we run our business, and we vote from sadness and anger and fear and disgust. Listen, if we want joy to characterize our life, we need an enduring confidence in someone who knows what's coming. When our confidence in God is resilient and enduring and unshakable, we can live from joy no matter what happens, right? It's like James says, we might not need anything else. So how do we come out of all of this difficulty, of all of the things that we have been through? How do we come out of the end of all this saying, I wouldn't choose it, but I wouldn't trade it either? Let me give you 3 things that we can hang on to that are the building blocks for this kind of enduring, resilient confidence in God. First of all, God knows. God knows. Can I tell you, He is the only one that does, right? We are not in the future. He is the only one who's there. We feel like we're supposed to know. We think we'd feel better if we knew, right? But the plain fact of the matter is we don't know. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what's happening tomorrow. So how do you have joy when you don't know the future? You trust the one who does. God knows. The second thing you can hang your resilient faith on is this, that God is in charge. God's in charge. We don't control the outcomes, right? I mean, we think we do. We want to. We try to. We work hard to. We think we're supposed to control the outcomes. Can I tell you how long I lived like that? Thinking that it was all on me, that if it was to be, it was up to me. I had to make it happen. I had to do it. And can I tell you, you will wear yourself out living that way. Burnout is at the end of that road. Here's what I learned growing up in the Central Valley of California. Every farmer at some point will have crop failure, even when they did everything right. There will be a time in your life when you will have crop failure, even when you did everything right. Look, the truth is we plant, we water, but God is the one who makes things grow. I hear us Christians every once in a while say these kind of cute, pithy statements. I know we're trying to kind of capture some truth about God, but they're not always right. At least I'm thinking that maybe that's not always right. There's things that I hear people say like, God will never give you more than what you can handle, right? And I think, man, I don't know what's wrong with me because there's been all kinds of stuff that's happened in my life that I had no idea how to handle, right? And things like everything happens for a reason. And I guess there's a sense in which that might be true, but I'm thinking, man, for me, sometimes the reason things happen to me is because I'm stupid and I make bad decisions. That's why things happen to me. But I got an email from a friend of mine a while back, and it had this statement on the bottom of the email. And this is what it said. It said, it'll be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. And I thought about that for a while. I thought, I wonder if that's actually true. It'll be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end. And I thought about this. You know what? There's a lot of things happening in this world that are not all right. When Nan and I were walking through the cancer journey, I'm telling you, every day I'd wake up thinking, this is not all right. Every time we have to go down to that place and get chemo, this is not all right. Every day she would come home from radiation, I'd be thinking, this is not all right. Watching her even these days, struggling with some of the aftermath of all of that. I think, man, that's not how it was meant to be. And then God reminds me, this isn't the end. It will be all right one day. But it ain't today. But this isn't the end. The reason it will be all right in the end is because God has the last word about our life. That when this life is all said and done and all of the things that happened that weren't the way God wanted it to be, can I tell you, there is a day coming when God will set it all right. It'll be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. God gets the last word. He gets the last outcome. Why would I ever settle for outcomes that I can manufacture when I can have the ones that God delivers, right? God is in charge. And the last thing you can hang it on is this. You can hang your confident faith on is this, that God is always at work. Can I just tell you, whatever you're worrying about right now, God is at work on. Whatever it is that you brought with you that is rolling through your head that you're thinking, how is that ever going to work out? God is at work on. See, worrying is all about the future, isn't it? What's going to happen then? What's going to happen tomorrow? Worrying is all about the future. We think worrying is working on the future. Isn't that what we think? I mean, that's what I think. When I'm worrying, I think I'm working on the future. I think I'm somehow working out the future, right? But here's what I know. Whatever I'm worrying is not actually getting anything accomplished. It's just burning down my soul about things that I have no control over at all. So what are you worrying about right now? No, really, what is it? God is at work, because God is always at work. Look, I'm like you. I want it over too. I mean, I want to go back to some of the comfort and some of the ease and some of the convenience and all of those things that we so fondly remember, right? But God wants this to matter in our life. Don't miss the thing that God wants to bring out of this difficult season in your life. Don't miss this opportunity to grow a resilient, enduring, steadfast, confident trust in God that will keep joy in the room in your life. So let me encourage you to do this. You know, every week we want to challenge you to take a step, to do something with what you're hearing. So do this if you want your faith to grow. Make a list. What is making me sad? What's making you angry? What is it that's making you afraid? What's making you disgusted? I bet I'll know. I bet I know. And then over all of these things, pray this prayer. God, you know. You know what's going on. God, you're in charge. You're in charge of the outcome of this, not me. And God, you're at work. You're working on this already. And you just show me how, and I will join you in this. But God, I will have a confident trust that you are at work. And I want to encourage you, in the next day or two, don't blow this off as some kind of, pastor exercise. Actually do this. Somewhere in a journal, somewhere where you keep your notes, make this list. And then pray this prayer over it. And let God begin to grow in you a confident, enduring faith that will see you through whatever comes your way. I think one of the best things that we can do when the world seems like it's spinning around our head and when things are crazy is just to call a time out and pause for just a moment and reflect at what's happening around us, and more specifically, what it's doing in us. And in that moment, to turn our eyes to Jesus and to consider him. Because you see, Jesus was our model of living this way. He said, I don't do anything except what my Father in heaven tells me to do, because my confidence is in him. And he pointed his life in that direction. And when the worst thing was happening to him, the worst thing that could happen to anybody was happening to him, torture, abandonment, crucifixion, death. The book of Hebrews tells us, for the joy set before him, he endured all of that for us. And he invites us into that kind of life. We follow Jesus as our example. If you're watching at home and you've maybe gathered some things to take communion with, bread, juice, this would be a great time to do that. If you're here in the room, we'll hand those to you as you exit today. And you can spend some time doing that. But right now, let's just take this moment of reflection. And maybe in this moment of reflection, you can just receive this prayer over you. This is a prayer that the Apostle Paul prayed for the people that he was leading. And this is my prayer for us. I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace. Why? Because you trust in him. And when you do that, then you'll overflow with a confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. Let's just take a moment and reflect and let this prayer be a prayer for you.